Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony. I'm so glad you can join us today, and I hope you're all doing fantabulous. That's fantastic and fabulous put together, just so you know. My special guest today is Angela Woosley, mortician and educator, who has recently been featured on the PBS documentary Remembering Place, A Cemetery Story, and who also is the owner and founder of Inspired Journeys, a funeral home focused on natural options at the end of life. Angela also serves as an event celebrant. So welcome, Miss Woosley. May I call you Angela?
Please do.
Okay, great. So as my listeners know, I like to build a foundation, so that they know a little bit about you. So before we talk about your career, can you tell us where you were born and raised, went to school, and all that interesting historical stuff about you, Miss Woosley?
Oh, when you say historical, it makes me feel very old.
Okay. Well,
that's okay.
Are you a Minnesotan, by the way?
I am not. I am originally from Kenosha, Wisconsin, the southeast corner, halfway between Milwaukee and Chicago. And
nice.
I was one of very few Scandinavian type folks in a very heavily Italian-American town. And
really?
Very much
I'm
so.
Italian.
Really?
Okay. You're so funny.
So yeah, I came to the University of Minnesota to become a mortician, and I liked it so much in Minnesota, I stayed.
Uh-huh. Where did you go to school for this field?
I went to the University of Minnesota's program of mortuary science. It's
okay.
I think it's still the only mortuary science program that is part of a medical school in the country. So,
all right. I thought maybe it was a different school. Maybe you just got your degree in the U of M and then you went and got... Aren't there schools just that focus on mortuary science, or am I wrong?
You are correct.
Oh.
The ABFSE, or the American Board of Funeral Service Examiners, they have a program or a curriculum that can be provided by community colleges or just as standalone institutions. But here in Minnesota, it's part of a bachelor's degree program.
Oh, wow, cool. What motivated you or got you involved in this field? What happened?
What happened?
Yeah, what happened?
Well, the short answer is that when I was a kid, my dad was a Lutheran pastor, and my mom was a registered nurse. And if you cross your eyes and squint, that's a mortician. I really admired and appreciated my mom's clinical set of skills. My dad was an incredible listener and a kind, calming presence. And those are really the skills that you need as a mortician, that anytime I'm caring for the dead, I need to be professional and I need to have a scientific mind about it. And both the attachment and detachment that comes with caring for a patient, and then as my dad's counseling skills really help me when I'm working with families and helping them navigate grief and the decisions that they have to make.
We thank you for what you do. It's very difficult. I can tell you through personal experience. I had dated someone. This is a funny story. I had dated someone that was an undertaker, I guess you would call it. Mm-hmm. Worked in a funeral home back in New York. And he had said to me, you have to come to my job and see what I do. So I was like, okay, I'm not thinking anything. What's he going to show me, Anyway, cut to the chase. I go down these stairs to this really dreary basement, and all these bodies with sheets on them with the toes sticking out with these little tags, and he's in the middle of embalming someone. And I knew right then and there I needed to go. It wasn't for me. It was very... that's why I'm saying we have to thank people that go into this field, because it's such a very, it's not a very common thing, right? It's something people. Why are you still making that? Well, that's what he said. He said, "Come see what I do," and I said, "Okay," and I did. It was very.
Why would he do that to you? The next time somebody says, know. "Who hurt you?" you say his name.
Well, you know what it is. I had invited him to my job when I was working as a paralegal at the time. I was like a legal assistant.
And how many dead bodies did you have in the legal office?
I had none. Zero.
None. Zero.
You're right. You're right.
Normal
next
offices.
time I'll think, well, there won't be a next time because
right?
I'm already married and this is the end for me. I'm done.
Normal offices don't have dead people in them.
Yeah. And then being in the middle of embalming someone on top of it, that was kind of interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of embalming.
Speaking of.
Embalming our loved ones began during the Civil War. Mm-hmm. We know Abraham Lincoln, our president, was our first president that was embalmed. And can you explain why embalming was embraced in our society and why it is not an environmentally friendly manner of burial?
Sure. So it came into fashion, in a way, during the Civil War, in part as a way for them to be able to transport the dead, the fallen dead from the war, back to their homes for burial, and it gave their families a chance to see them one more time and say goodbye. And because this was kind of the first war where every casualty was an American casualty, and we were all kind of in different parts of the country. That's why it came to be that. Embalming currently uses formaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen, which means it causes cancer. And over the course of its history, embalming has always used either heavy metals or various chemicals. It's a pretty complicated list of interesting ingredients. The formaldehyde itself is still used because it fixes proteins to delay their breakdown or decomposition. But again, it in itself is a dangerous carcinogen. So, yeah.
Right, it is. Mm-hmm. Yep. But in my profession, now that this is not my day job, I'm a flight attendant, mm-hmm. and I know that for bodies to be, for example, if someone dies and they want to be buried in their hometown or something, they have to be embalmed first to go on the airplane. Mm-hmm. Is there something else they could do? Or what would be your suggestion? Because I know you're totally against embalming, and correct? Yes, no,
I don't know.
maybe
I would
so.
say totally against it. I wouldn't want it for myself, but I think it also has it has a tradition that goes back to the Civil War, and sometimes it is the best option that families have. So whatever is right for the family is what I'm down with. Yeah. But yeah, it is generally required for air travel. Excuse me. It is generally required for air travel.
Am I choking you up?
Oh, gosh. This is a very difficult discussion.
No, it is. I didn't know that you had to be embalmed to be mm-hmm. moved. What if the person's not of a religion that is against it? What happens in that case then?
Well, I have it on a local good authority that the folks who are being flown back to Israel for burial mm-hmm.
because
they are Jewish, that they generally are kind of packed in with some refrigerant coolie packs, like a little, cooler pack. And several of those, like if you get Blue Apron, it comes with these freezer packs. Those
I know
sorts
what you mean.
Of things.
Yeah.
And then they can also be kind of placed into a container called a Ziegler case that is more firmly closed. It kind of screws shut rather than just being, a cardboard box or whatever it might be. So,
well, to piggyback on Jewish traditions, because mm-hmm. You just conjured up something. When I lived in New York, the Jewish people have a tradition called sitting Shiva. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Can I tell you why? Because everybody goes there, they bring food, and they talk about the person. It's more familial. It's not in this big venue. It's usually in someone's home, and they sit on a box or whatever it is, and discuss the person and talk about them and celebrate their life. I loved it. I thought it was, rather than just sitting, everybody around crying and, like in a normal wake, they celebrate the person. What do you think about that tradition?
Well, I'm going to go off on a tangent. I'm going to go off, Anthony, because Philip Anthony. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent because I also really appreciate and love the tradition of Shiva, and a lot of the work that I've done with home funerals and the National Home Funeral Alliance really focuses on being able to bring that relaxed, casual atmosphere of healing to spaces after death. So rather than needing to go to a funeral chapel and conjure up tears at 11 a.m. sharp, because that's the time frame that the funeral home has available, anytime that you can care for and be present with the person in their home or elsewhere after death, it just creates a more relaxed atmosphere and
calming.
And I think that for many people it does help them celebrate, help them focus on because they're in their comfort zone. They're in a familiar environment. It doesn't feel like you have to get dressed up to go there, right?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Having to go to the church and then walk, seeing the coffin go down the aisle, and then everybody's crying, and then this and that, and then you have to get the limousine come pick you up and take you. You're in your home,
right?
You're there in the place that's your safe space that you love. Yeah. And you have the people that you love come to your safe space, and you can share and talk about. I don't know. I just think it's a wonderful tradition, and I wish more of our world religions would embrace it. It's wonderful.
Well, and it doesn't need to be world religions who are embracing it, but simply people returning to the origins of how we have cared for and loved people after death for hundreds and thousands of years. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't have to be any particular faith or any particular tradition to want to slow down. A very good friend of mine, Anne Murphy, is a home funeral guide, and the phrase that she shared with me is, "Death is not an emergency." We have this tendency to a person dies and the nursing home staff says, "Okay, we got to call a funeral home. Are you ready to call a funeral home?" And you go, "No, but okay." And you call the funeral home, and the funeral home says, "All right, are you ready for us to come out and whisk that person away?" And you say, "No, but okay." And then the funeral home comes out and you whisk away this person, and then you have to schedule a time to see them again. And death is not an emergency. It's okay to slow down. Time dilates. It dilated for me, right? When I was an acute griever, time just slowed way down. And to be able to take those moments and that time and just be present and just let your body feel and react and be a part of that moment gives you a chance to process. It gives you a chance to think with your thoughts and feel your feelings and just be.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and I think grieving should be on your own terms. Mm-hmm. I don't think it should be on everybody else's. That's just how I feel about it.
I believe it's Alan Wolfelt who said that everyone is their own grief expert, right? That you know how you need to be grieving. No one else can tell you better than you what you and your body and your mind and your spirit need.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you talk about the chapels in the cemeteries, such as Lakewood, for example, And as a follow-up, which chapel do you find the most historic, ornate, or different in terms of its architecture? So talk about a little bit about some of the chapels you've encountered.
So when I graduated from the University of Minnesota, I completed my internship at Crystal Lake Funeral Home and Cemetery in North Minneapolis. And I really have always loved being at and working at, for a lot of my career, funeral homes on the grounds of a cemetery. And one of the things I like so much about it is that it's a matter of convenience for the family, but it also, cemeteries are a place that you come back to time and time and time again. Funeral homes you come back to, oh gosh, when I absolutely have to. So for standalone funeral homes, we don't often get to see a family that we've served very soon or regularly, I guess I would say. Mm-hmm. But when I worked at Sunset Funeral Home and Cemetery in Northeast Minneapolis, there was a man in a Cadillac who would come in through the grounds every single day, pull up to his wife's grave and say the rosary in his car when it was cold, or outside by her grave when it was nice. They are a place to return to. And I just really appreciate that. And well, so Sunset's mausoleum and chapel is historic and unusual and I think beautiful. It has a lot of nice 1920s stained glass and architecture inside. But also Lakewood's chapel is it's a dome, it's a mosaic inside, it's a complete work of art.
Oh, it is, yes.
Its acoustics are incredible.
Yes.
So yeah, Lakewood just takes it away. Lakewood's chapel is beautiful. I know so many morticians who have been married in Lakewood's chapel because, they don't have, I think many people who aren't morticians have also been married there. But yeah, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous space. There are a lot of great spaces.
Any other chapels you've been to that you could talk about that at par with Lakewood?
At par with Lakewood in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, no, probably not.
No.
That's unique in itself.
It's unique. It is absolutely
It is beautiful.
unique.
I've been in there, and you feel like you're in a cathedral sometimes. You do. And it's beautiful, and the architecture and everything about it. Yeah. Going back to the cemetery thing, I just went off on a tangerine myself. If my parents were buried in Minnesota, which they're not, they're in New York, and like I said, the VA cemetery. I would love to have that opportunity to just go at any whim and just go there, curl up next to the stone and talk. I miss that. Being here in Minnesota, that's the one thing. But my husband promised me that when my mom is gone 25 years, so she passed in 99, so in 2024 she will have passed 25 years ago. He promised he would take me back to New York, so I'd have my little time. I do. When I first get there, I bawl like a baby. It's very emotional for me, because both of my parents. Because I'm sure like in the VA cemeteries, you have the husband, the one who served in one part of the grave, and then the wife on the other side. It's kind of like that.
Unless that's the woman who served, in which case.
Well, yeah. I'm being a little sexist right now.
Just it's fine.
But
we're all learning.
Well, back in the day, that's all. Right? It was the men that were serving.
Unless you were a whack. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Wax.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Well, I think I didn't. I interrupted you with sexism and didn't let you finish your question.
No. That wasn't a question. It was just, what do you think about people that don't have that opportunity to, get on a bus or drive to see their loved one in the cemetery, and they're so far away? Isn't that...
Well, here's a question that I have for you. Where in Minnesota or in the Twin Cities is the place that feels most sacred to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably my husband's mother's grave.
So I would argue, or I would offer to you, that every time you visit your husband's mother's grave, talk to your mom.
Can I do that?
Your mom is not tied to one location.
Yeah, you're right.
She rejoined the fabric of the whole universe. She returned to the earth, and the whole earth is one big marble, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so the fact that you are on a global scale, an inch away, if you're far enough away, your mom is right there.
Right.
Your mom is right. She's right here.
All
right?
the time. Yeah.
She's right here all the time. But if there's a way that you can just go to that place, be in peace and solitude, and just bawl like a baby, do what you need to do, talk to her, sing to her, be with her.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be the actual place where you interred her bones, right?
Correct. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
Right.
You are carrying her memory with you everywhere you go, and so everywhere you go, you have a place of memory to go to visit. That would be what I would offer. Is
right.
anytime I'm somewhere that feels important or profound or sacred, I talk to my dad. Anytime something reminds me of my dad, I don't say, "Oh gosh, I wish I could go to the cemetery and tell him about it." He's right here.
That makes a lot of sense.
He's right here.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the thing that maybe that triggers me, Angela, and it's not the idea that she's gone. It's that my personal history. My dad was killed when I was a little boy. I was about to turn 5, so I really didn't know my father very well. And he was a veteran, and he was buried there in the VA. And when my mom died, I would go there and I'd see their both names, and I said, now they're together.
Yeah.
They're together again because my mom and dad loved each other, and to see that they're in the same place. I think that's why that cemetery is a little different than if I would just. Does that make sense? When I'm trying to, I don't know if I'm being.
It's powerful. No, you're right.
It's very powerful. Yeah. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to think about them being together and in other places rather than just at the cemetery. But on the anniversary, I would like to go.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
No, that's fine.
I think that for important occasions, for big moments like that, for being able to observe the 25th anniversary of her death, of her passing, I think it's great to be able to physically be there. But when you're not, it's like saying, do you have to go to a church to find God?
Exactly.
And some people would disagree with me, but
Well, thank you for that idea, because that would heal me, make me heal better. That I'm not there. You know what I'm saying?
I wonder if, bringing it back to cemeteries and things that they offer, I wonder if it also wouldn't be worth placing a plaque somewhere local with, they've got...
Both my parents' name, you mean?
Yeah, with your parents' names, maybe a photo or something, to be able to have a tangible place where you are reunited, where you're reminded that they have been reunited, where there's a concrete reminder of their love and their presence in your life.
I have up there. I have my parents. My dad's pictures are him in his military uniform. My mom is on the bottom left, and on the top is a picture, the only picture that exists of my dad, mom, and me in the same. Because my dad would take the pictures, so it was always my mom and me. In those days, they didn't have it. Could you anybody in the street? Could you come take a picture?
Right.
It wasn't like that. But yeah, I could do that too. So, but thank you for the idea. It's a wonderful, beautiful idea. I remember, speaking of my mom, as a child, I remember my mom saying, "You must never walk on a grave." Do you ever hear that expression?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it still a predominant custom, or do modern cemeteries have more designated walking paths for mourners? Do they have walking paths? In other words, can you still walk on a grave, or is it okay? What are your thoughts on that?
So I think a lot of people share your worry or share your mom's thoughts or advice that we don't really want to be walking across dead people. It feels disrespectful.
Correct, yes.
Most cemeteries do have an aisle between one row of graves and the next row of graves, but it can be difficult to know if you're walking on an aisle or a whole row of dead people. So, so if you look at the graves themselves as a row, if you can kind of line up the stones, you should be able to figure out if they're headstones or footstones, meaning either are they at the person's head or feet. And once you've determined that, because if you've got, say, just maybe 2 feet between one row of headstones and the next, it's not people, buried within 2 feet. So you know that the graves are going the opposite way. So you can locate an aisle to walk through. But what I find more than anything is that it's really difficult not to walk on the dead at the cemetery. I know. More than anything, the usual advice that I hear is not to walk on someone's stones. So, avoid walking on a person's headstone or footstone if it's a flat marker. But yeah, other than that, you can stay on the road and then just kind of eyeball where the rows are to be able to walk in between.
Okay, that's good advice. And also try to be aware of where your loved one is, and maybe find the same path every time you go, so you're not disturbing another grave. Yeah. So can you explain for the listeners about the word undertaker and how this profession is related to cabinet makers from the past, I think, right? In the past, cabinet makers were undertakers, right? And can you talk about that?
Sure. So cabinet makers, based on their ability to do woodwork, were eventually in America asked to, well, you're really good at making a cabinet, could you make a coffin or a casket for this person who died? And so the cabinet makers undertook that.
That's where the word comes from.
Right.
Wow.
It's an undertaking. And then in addition to making the coffin or casket, then they were asked, well, while you're here, could you place them in the casket or coffin? Or while you're here, could you da-da-da? So the profession itself, as a profession, grew out of the need for caskets and coffins and the folks who were good at making those things.
And was there a time, well, of course there was a time, but there must have been, was it probably a long time ago where it diverged, where those cabinet makers stopped making cabinets and just coffins, or did both, or what is your thought? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, if you look through really, really old advertisements, you can find places that say cabinets and undertaking, or just undertakers, or you can see the combination and where those tended to diverge, because it did seem that some people were not interested in caring for the dead, and so they just wanted to make cabinets because that's what my dad. His dad before him did. Why are you asking me to care for these dead people? So they just diverged. Yeah,
like carpenters probably too. Some of them decided, well, I'm done making, this little morbid for me. I think I'll just stick to building houses, or whatever it is they do. So Tiny Tim, speaking of interesting, Tiny Tim, Hubert Humphrey, Paul Wellstone, amongst many others, are buried in our Twin Cities cemeteries. Do regular people still to this day go visit these cemeteries? Do you find that the case?
Absolutely. absolutely. That's the purpose of a cemetery, is to have a place for regular people to go back and remember either other regular people or other famous people. I remember one of the, oh gosh, when was this? Maybe 20 years ago. I went to a Memorial Day celebration at Lakewood, and there was a Tiny Tim impersonator playing some of his tunes
cute.
by his niche in the mausoleum. And Paul Wellstone's marker, if you can call it that, is kind of this large boulder, and it's meant to evoke the going back to Shiva. Meant to evoke the tradition of placing pebbles on.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Stone. Yeah, and that way, if you look around Paul Wellstone's marker with his name, there's just this rock garden of pebbles, and each pebble is a memory, a prayer.
Wow.
That's going to persist, and it's not going to be cleared off like flowers off a grave.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such a great idea.
Yeah.
And each one represents someone who went to pay their respects.
Yes.
Wow. And it's a visual, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Yeah. Awesome. So let's go to a different subject. You promote natural burial as opposed to burial that is not environmentally favorable. Can you elaborate on this a little bit for our listeners? Because this is a very intricate thing, and I don't want to, talk about it because you know the whole thing, and you could explain it way better than I could ask it. So,
well, just like with embalming, anything that's right for the family is right for them, whether it's extremely environmentally friendly or extremely not. But I just know that the way that the funeral profession has changed over the years, that we are seeing more and more people as they become environmentally conscious in the other parts of their lives, that they're interested in reducing their footprint or impact on the earth after death. And so if they can avoid using formaldehyde or heavy metals and chemicals in embalming, why not also reduce their impact by not utilizing a vault or concrete outer burial container? Most cemeteries require that, but there's no state law or local law or national law that requires a cemetery to utilize vaults or outer burial containers. So natural burial grounds or natural cemeteries generally just forego that. And you can tell the difference between a natural cemetery and a cemetery that uses vault, because if you look out again through those rows of spaces, if you look out like at Soldiers and Pioneers, like an old cemetery, you see that the ground kind of looks like rolling waves, and that's because of each grave, as the person takes up less room over time, that earth sinks down. So a concrete outer burial container makes the earth nice and flat and easy to mow. But natural burial includes skipping out on a concrete outer burial container, skipping out on embalming, skipping out on a hardwood or metal casket or coffin, and instead utilizing something, maybe a container made from more renewable resources like a linen shroud or seagrass woven basket casket, or a simple reclaimed barnwood casket, and then simply placed directly into the ground. And then that way, the person is going to return to the earth more easily, more quickly, and our bodies benefit the earth around us, right? So,
how does is there such a thing as natural cremation as well? So, if you're going to bury someone that's not going to be in a casket, what can you elaborate on that?
Sure. So, cremation itself certainly has a lower carbon footprint than a traditional burial with a concrete outer burial container and metal casket and all of that.
Right.
But an even lower impact is what we call green cremation or water cremation, or its technical term is alkaline hydrolysis. And this is a form of cremation that, rather than using natural gas and fuel fire, a flame-based cremation with direct heat and flame, instead uses a chamber with a strong basic solution, so a water, a strong base like baking soda. So not acid. The opposite of an acid is a strong base.
Right, alkaline. Yeah.
Alkaline. Yeah.
Yeah.
For the science folks out there, and then either a little bit of heat, a little bit of pressure, to accomplish the same thing as cremation. So at the end of a green cremation process, we're able to recover cremated remains or ashes, but instead of being charred kind of a light gray, they are snow white. And they are soft and porous, and we're able to recover even a little bit more. And it has about, I believe it's like a third or a seventh of the environmental impact as a flame-based cremation. Is
it a common procedure now, or is it getting more common, or in your estimation, how do you see it?
It's getting more common. More and more states, I'm not sure, I haven't kept up on this, but I'm not sure exactly how many states have legalized green cremation, but Minnesota was the first state in the union to legally recognize it as a form of disposition.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because we're, trendsetters.
We're in Minnesota.
We're above average,
Are there any other, other than alkaline hydrolysis, are there any other procedures, or that's the most common one of the natural cremation methods?
That's probably the most common of the other natural options at the end of life. There, you might have heard of things like the mushroom suit, or
I think I've heard of that.
Enteropod or something like that.
Yeah, that too.
And those are all kind of like, in my opinion, again, what's right for every family is right for them. But they're kind of a middleman between them and natural burial. Like, I believe the mushroom suit's effectiveness has actually been disproven, that it doesn't help grow mushrooms because it's too far underground. Anyway, regardless, there are other things, mushroom suit, Entero, EcoPod thing, or what have you. But the other new thing that we're hearing more about is natural organic reduction, or the brand name is Recompose, if you've heard of that.
No.
So that's started out in Washington State by Katrina Spade, who kind of created it as a graduate project, and essentially it's a human composting process that was originally designed to help people accomplish natural burial if they don't have a lot of space. So as a New Yorker, you know that in Manhattan, you probably don't have many natural burial grounds, right? Because the space is at a premium. It's a very urban area. So if there's a building that can accomplish the same thing as natural burial and saves the fuel of driving 5 counties over to find a place to have a natural burial, that way you can accomplish natural burial within the heart of the city. So that's that human composting that creates yards of soil, usable soil.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's why you're here. Both my parents are buried in Long Island National Cemetery in New York State. It's a VA cemetery. Do you have any thoughts about VA cemeteries and their practices? And I'll give you an example of one unusual practice. Now, in most cemeteries, you can bring flowers or a little, a statue of a saint or whatever your religion is, and we'll put whatever you want there, and it'll be there when you come back. In VA cemeteries, you put the flowers that day, and maybe a week or maybe a day or two. I don't know what the new time frame is, but they have to remove that, remove the flowers. Mm-hmm. What are your feelings about that, and what other differences or any comments you have to make about VA cemeteries?
Well, all sorts of cemeteries have different policies about what you can leave, whether they're real flowers, artificial flowers, whether you can bring in wind chimes and saint statues. There are some cemeteries in the Twin Cities metro that look kind of like a carnival ground with everything that you can bring and leave there. Yeah. Which is fine. And there are others that only allow real flowers, and they absolutely clear them within a week. So every cemetery has its own rules, and national cemeteries, as you can imagine, due to the military precision, have more rules.
Right.
It wouldn't be the military if there weren't hoops, right?
True.
But one of the things that I think is really special about national cemeteries and military cemeteries is that, first of all, that every single veteran interred there is offered
free burial.
I'm gonna have to gather my thoughts. Military honors, and of course you can have military honors in any cemetery for any veteran. But at the National Cemetery, like here at Fort Snelling,
right,
they have their own dedicated team that only performs military honors on their grounds. And I think that that's a really important and powerful ceremony.
Yeah, and they have uniform tombstones. They're all the same.
I love that as well.
I think that looks beautiful. I really do. And there was another thing I was going to say that they do that I like. Well, of course, they bury for free. You don't. It's if you're a veteran, you get the whole process is no out of pocket cost.
Sure.
My mother too, because she was the bride of a veteran. And anything else I'm leaving out?
Well, I know at Fort Snelling they have very precise arrival times. So sometimes,
Yeah, I know that.
A funeral might run over at church. You might have an uncle who has given a spontaneous eulogy of 15 extra minutes. And most cemeteries you can call and say, we're going to be a few minutes late. We're going to be a half an hour late. Lunch ran over, whatever it is. At Fort Snelling, you missed it. 5 minutes late, you missed it. You're going to have to go to the back of the line. And simply because there's such a busy cemetery. They do have rules and requirements about timing and then visiting hours, what you can leave at the space.
Yeah.
The benefits to veterans of being able to have space, outer burial container, and marker all at the government's cost.
Yeah.
Being entitled to military honors, being entitled to a flag for burial purposes that can be given to your family.
Yep, I have that. My dad's. Yep.
Do you have
it was given to my mom, and now I have it. Yeah.
Do you have a presidential memorial certificate?
I'm not sure. How would I know that?
Well, because you'd have a certificate.
Yep.
We could look through.
Like I said, I was so little when he died, and when my mom died, I just went through her things, but I don't think I found that.
Yeah.
And speaking of, again, Fort Snelling, don't you find it unusual that for a place that you have to be prompt, it's right near the airport where all that traffic is, people going to try to catch a flight? Always found that bizarre, it's a cemetery and there's planes flying around and traffic and I don't know.
Well, in their defense, wasn't the cemetery there first?
I think you're right, actually, but I'm not sure. I came here later in life, so I'm not sure about that. You could be right. But anyway, now, say now in your NPR voice.
Now.
And now we have come to, I can't do an NPR voice. Let me try. Now. Is that good?
Just bring it down and smooth it out. Just remember that this is the smooth jazz of voices.
Now. We have come to the part of the show I like to call the shift. shift with an F.
Oh.
Because without the F, it's not good.
F-I... No.
The shift. Where I shift the questioning away from your job as president and owner. I'm sorry, not president and owner. You're the...
Just owner is fine.
Owner.
Yeah.
The owner of... say the name again. I'm forgetting.
Inspired Journeys.
Inspired Journeys. And on your opinions of current affairs. Inspired Journey. I love the name. But it doesn't, for some reason, for me, doesn't conjure up end of life imagery. But I love it.
No, it doesn't, because it's not Woosley and Sons.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was expecting. Anyway, so as of the taping of so now we're doing current affairs.
Sure. As
of the taping of this show, we have a new speaker. His name is Kevin McCarthy. Did you know that?
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I heard his name a lot over the past few days.
Oh, jeez. And he will be doing many investigations, he announced, right? Among them, investigating the origins of COVID and Dr. Fauci. You know, Dr. Fauci, the one who saved many lives with the promoting the vaccine. And you have seen many people die of COVID in your profession. So do you think this investigation will be productive, or what are your views on this?
My views on the COVID investigation that he has promised. I would say that whatever keeps him busy, it's fine. It's, go keep busy. But what is it going to produce? It's not going to produce the answers that he's looking for, because
it's not going to save the lives of the people that have already passed.
It's not going to save the lives of people who are going to continue to get
COVID.
Yeah. So, from a healthcare standpoint, it's not going to accomplish anything, and hopefully it won't hinder or get in the way of anything as medical professionals continue to try to save lives and encourage the use of vaccines and protections that can, reduce the impact of the disease itself. But whatever keeps him busy. He's not going to accomplish anything. If it's not this investigation, it's some other investigation into. That's fine.
I have this fear, though, that by him doing this, it'll take the credibility of Dr. Fauci and everything he's trying to do.
You mean Trump's appointee, Dr. Fauci?
Well, Dr. Fauci, you know as well as I do, has been around for a really long time. I remember during the AIDS crisis in the 80s when people were dying left and right in my life.
Yeah, and what did you do then?
I lost my best friend. I lost friends. I lost neighbors. I lost so many people. And he was the one that was out there pushing to get drugs passed that would save lives or keep people alive a little longer or whatever. I don't know why they're demonizing him. It's kind of sad, and
Well, he's an easy scapegoat.
Yeah.
And I think in particular because he's a doctor and he's knowledgeable, and the way that I see it is that the Republican strategy has been to be anti-intellectual, anti-elite, and
you hit it right on the head. That's what it is.
He's a smart guy, so he must be wrong because he's smart, and that's what's going to connect with their base is people with all their fancy learnings,
But everything's a conspiracy theory these days, on that. Well, not for us, not for us learned people. I think they like to create these stories, I think, that can just get their base to donate money, or like I was talking to you before. You know who Diamond and Silk are? The two African American right wing women that were totally against the vaccine and everything, and they love Trump and everything. Well, Diamond died. One of the duo.
You said today, right?
Today, I think it was either today or yesterday. I'm thinking that and by the way, the news report said that she was in the hospital around Thanksgiving with COVID. So when you go to the hospital with COVID, you don't have like a fever for a few days or a bad cough or whatever. It hit you hard, really bad.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's what finally ended her life, but she kept saying, "Oh no, vaccines, no, and this is all fake, and this is fake, and that's fake," and and unfortunately, look what happened to her, and she was only 51 years old. So this is what I'm saying about misinformation. Disinformation. I can't say misinformation. Disinformation.
Well, it's both, right?
Well, yeah.
Sometimes it's just people who are continuing in good faith to share bad information. But a lot of times it's also people in bad faith sharing bad information. So that to me is the difference between that mis and disinformation. Diamond and Silk may be very genuine in their beliefs, but that doesn't make doesn't make facts different.
Yeah, and they're not scientists. They didn't go to school and study this. For years, like Dr. Fauci's been. That's his whole life is about these diseases and studying them and immunology and all this stuff. So for her to come out and debunk Fauci, to me that's, I was just thinking something. Speaking of AIDS, if the internet was around and we had, social media in the 80s, don't you think AIDS would have been worse? I think, because I think, how people were like spreading fake stuff, like saying, "Oh, if you drink from the same water fountain as a gay person, you're going to get AIDS." Or if you use the toilet seat, or if you eat from the same utensil, or drink from the same glass, or whatever. Now, those rumors only kind of spread. They weren't like super spreaders like they would be today with social media. How do you think people would have reacted to that back then?
Well, this environment right now, I think, is culturally and politically is so radically different from, the height of the AIDS crisis. I think that anything that further divides people is just grist for the mill. That's what's on the menu.
It's unfortunate. Anyway, moving on to the next question.
Is this one more upbeat?
Something a little more upbeat. No, actually, it's not going to be. It's not going to be upbeat. No, nothing in the news is upbeat, though, Angela. It's just the way it is.
Tell me about it.
12 people are reported dead after an unusual amount of cyclones that have hit California, leaving 110,000 citizens or more without power. What are your thoughts about how climate change is most likely the reason for these tragedies?
Climate change is most likely the reason for these tragedies, is what I think. And I saw that even today, I saw a headline that these have been harder on human life than the wildfires in California. I saw that another state of emergency, that mudslides and everything. And yeah, it's going to be a long, slow road.
And tornadoes are much more prevalent than they used to be. I mean, you turn around and you see whole towns and cities getting demolished by tornadoes. Tides are rising. What's that thing in Florida? They have the red tide, I think it's called. It's supposed to be killing all the animals and all. It's just crazy. And people still don't think it's a thing. That's what makes me angry.
Yeah.
Why don't you want renewables? What's the problem? What's up with you?
What's up with you? Indeed. Indeed. I don't know. To me, the fact that we had pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord was a terrible, terrible move. And
Voldemort did that, though.
Well, sure. Oh, he who shall not be named. Yes,
that's why I call him that.
Yeah. There's a lot of inaction, and I think that. I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope globally. I'm really glad that we committed to money for the countries that are going to be most hardest hit, the hardest hit by climate change. That's
all we could do is pray and hope these people can have a change of heart and start thinking more about the world as belonging to all of us and something that we really have to take care of, like as if you had a baby. You know how you take care of a baby and you want it to grow and have a good life. That's what our Earth. We only have one Earth. Where are we going to go? You're going to build, a city on the moon or something.
Well,
I mean,
Elon Musk would like us to go to Mars.
Maybe that's why he's got the whole spaceship ready to go. Anyway, so what are your thoughts about? Now this is going in a different direction.
Oh, great!
I just love current events. What are your thoughts about the January 6th style insurrection attempt in Brazil by pro-Bolsonaro fascists? Do you think fascism is growing throughout the world, and how can we stop it? What can we do? I mean, do you think first of all, do you think it's growing around the world, or you think we're nipping it in the bud little by little?
Well, I think that I've heard on places like NPR, I've heard that absolutely white nationalism and fascism and authoritarian style government is all increasing. We've got more hard right politicians being elected in various countries, in Italy and Scandinavia.
Sweden.
Yep, there's a lot of that going
And they had
on.
an uprising in Germany, I heard. Recently.
And I'm not surprised, honestly, by what happened in Brazil. Just like I'm not surprised that Bolsonaro is hanging out in Florida with his other favorite loser.
I know. That's kind of scaring me. Because he knows that's a safe place for him, Florida.
Well, there's got to be some extradition that can happen. And regardless, I don't know. If I could solve fascism, I would probably switch careers.
Yeah.
But as a lowly mortician, I don't know how to solve it. I do see that it's on the rise, and I was just simply not surprised, I guess, by what happened.
I saw that and I said, wow, doesn't it sound like a deja vu all over again? Bolsonaro claiming the election stolen.
Would not transfer power.
Did not show up at the inauguration of the new president. What's his name, Lula?
Lula is his nickname.
Lula.
No, he was eating KFC the day of his inauguration. He was eating KFC in Florida. And coincidentally, Florida is led by none other than Ron, little Trump, DeSantis. I call him Baby Trump, and because if Trump doesn't get the nomination, it could be Baby Trump, and you'll have the young face with the same Trumpism and hate and all that stuff. Because right now he's just like, down in Florida, you can't even a teacher can't even tell little kids that, this is my wife. This is my wife, exactly.
If she's a woman or vice versa. Or you can't talk about your identity. If a kid feels that they're not, this is my pronoun, what the hell's the difference? If you tell me you want to be called Mimi, I'll call you Mimi because that's what you want to be. What's the big deal? I don't understand these pronoun problems.
It's a big deal.
You know what I'm saying? My name's Philip, right? And your name's Angela. If you say to me, Philip, I'd rather you call me Ange. I'll call you Ange. If I say to you, Angela, I'd rather you call me Phil, which I hate, but call me Phil. Okay, you'll do that. What's the issue with these people with making mountains out of molehills about pronouns? I don't know.
One word: wokeness.
Oh God, yeah. We don't want that. We don't want to be woke.
Well, again,
respectful.
Right. We don't want to improve. We don't want to become kinder. We don't want to become more expansive, more inclusive. We
Respectful.
Don't want to respectful.
That's my big word with wokeness. It's respect.
Right.
Because if someone,
if I have to show you the same respect I show somebody else, what does that mean for me? Right?
Exactly.
It means nothing. It means it's no skin off your nose. Just, ugh. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. And also, I did hear, speaking of Bolsonaro having KFC, I heard that he was admitted to the hospital with some abdominal problems today.
Was it from the KFC?
I can only hope. I am anxiously awaiting KFC's public statement on the health and efficacy of their chicken products. Probably as, I don't know, maybe we can tie it in with the COVID somehow.
Yeah.
It'll be the new ivermectin.
Well, he did have COVID, I remember back in the day, and he kind of said, I'll be okay, and I'll make it, like Trump did. He pulled the mask off, the whole deal, and made it seem like this is not a big deal, People are dying left and right, but just don't worry about it, it's fine.
It's fine.
It'll just, everybody be fine. Anyway, where am I now? Oh, before we end the show, is there any particular political story that I haven't mentioned that you would like to talk about at all? Or anything going on in the world that you have particular interest in? Or should I talk about the queer community?
Let's talk about the queer community.
Because I always have a question my listeners know about the queer community on my show, because I happen to be a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and I am the G of the LGBTQ plus community.
I'm a B in multiple ways.
You're a B, yeah, and I have a lot of L friends, and I love the mosaic. It's beautiful. So the queer community has the protection of marriage to help navigate end-of-life decisions. Does that leave a gap, or any gap at all?
Sure. So in our alphabety rainbow family, trans members are, I think, the new group that can use some attention and protection and focus. So before marriage equality was the law of the land, you might have recalled or had experiences that it was kind of hard to have your partner of, say, 40 years make the decisions for you after you've died. And instead, you had to negotiate with that person's parents, who may or may not agree with your quote-unquote lifestyle. Right.
That's a good NPR voice.
Lifestyle. Give me a break. I don't agree with that lifestyle.
Yeah, we did have to get power of attorney when I was when I was first diagnosed back in 2009 with cancer, and I survived that. But
you survived the power of attorney.
You
sure did.
But marriage equality passed in 2015, so that was 6 years after that. So
So right now, it's easy for your spouse, if and when you die, and spoilers, we're all going to die. It would be easy for your spouse to be able to make those decisions without any question, because you have that protection. A trans person, if they are in danger of, say, their parents, if their parents would be their legal next of kin, without any other protection or action on their part, their parents could decide to misgender them after death, dead name them, celebrate the life of someone who basically doesn't exist anymore. And that's a real problem, I think, especially when you think of the increased risk of violence being perpetrated against trans folks, to then also suffer the erasure of who you are as a human being. I think that's a real problem that we have. And currently, trans folks can take steps, just like pre-marriage equality, queer couples could take steps to ensure that their identity, their lifestyle choices were respected after death. Right?
Ay, Dios mío. I love that lifestyle choice thing.
Lifestyle choice.
It's like, who gave me a ballot to check off what sexual orientation I was going to be? I mean, it's so stupid.
Oh,
I can't stand.
Are you saying that that's not a lifestyle choice? Like whether you want to drive a coupe or a sedan.
Yeah, but because you got to remember, I was brought up. I came of age in the 70s. Do you think anybody in their right mind, especially in the 70s, would choose to be gay? Choose it, like say, I'd love to upset my parents and my family and
be ostracized,
have to
beaten
sneak
up
in a gay bar and meet guys in a shadowy dirty room
I thought you guys just enjoyed the intrigue.
No, it was tough. Not. It was very tough. It was hard because I was pretty much being a phony a lot of the time. I was. And you know who gets hurt the most, though, Angela? This is what I like to tell all my straight friends. It's the straight person that you're dating to try to cover up. How many girls I dated?
Won't somebody think of the beards
that I have? Yeah, and I broke up with them, and they were crying and upset, and I hurt so many people's feelings. I mean, I tell this story to my husband. He laughs. I was dating this girl. I could use her first name, Barbara. Her name was. And I broke up with her, and I broke up with her to her face because that's one thing I always did and didn't believe in the telephone, even before we had cell phones and, FaceTime and all that stuff. I could have called on the landline and said, I don't want to see you anymore. But I remember her taking it so bad that when I left, she lived in a 5-story building. And she extended her legs out the window, screaming at me, "I'm going to jump! I'm going to jump! I can't! I don't know how you could do this to me." And she was crying, and I remember to myself, "I'm ruining other people's lives. What a horrible person I am." No, I mean, I'm saying that to me. Right. But meantime, it's not me. It's the society around me that's making me lie. Right. Because if they accepted me and just said, okay, what's the big deal? This would never happen in the first place. I would have been with a guy,
Right.
So anyway, but unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show today. And I want to just thank you so much for coming on the Downright Upright Show. And
having me.
I hope you will promise me one thing, that I loved having you as a guest. I really did. You're a lot of fun. Very enlightening. I learned so much from you. Would you like to come on the show again in the future? Do you think you would do that?
Yes, indeed. If your show tolerates the backlash of all of the horrible things I've said.
No.
I'd be delighted.
My guest, yeah, you're the guest. My listeners would love to hear you again. We had such a good back and forth, so I'd love to see you come back. Sure. And for more about Angela Woosley, you can go to inspiredjourneymn.com, correct?
It's plural, so it's Inspired Journeys.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. Inspired Journeys.
And I'm just one lady, so I couldn't afford to buy all the extra other, redirect. Like, if you type it in wrong, you're going to the wrong place.
I'm having so much trouble with Inspired Journeys today, right? It's the second time.
No, it's okay. You hit on the right point that it does not sound like a funeral home, because I wanted it to be more encompassing, that everything that happens to us or that we experience at the end of our life can be inspired. Yeah. It is a journey that we're taking through the unknown.
Makes total sense. And you're trying to make people think of death in a positive way rather than the negative way we always think of it,
Absolutely.
So anyway, let's do this. Let's go. Beep. Let's do it over. For more about Angela Woosley, you can go to inspiredjourneysmn.com, where you can watch the PBS documentary Remembering Place, The Cemetery Story, and also watch Twin Cities Voices, Angela Woosley, and the Mortuary Science Program at the U of M, originally broadcast on the CW Twin Cities Network. Thank you so much, Angela, for coming again. I can't thank you enough. And to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us today. And please stay tuned for more of the Downright Upright Show in the future. This is your host, Philip Anthony, saying ciao for now.